To, won't
Absolutely,
you?
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to say any more, Del, about Andrea now, or are you
Well,
gonna wait?
yeah. You know, every year for many years I've been doing a benefit to a fund which is established in 1994. Andrea, my adorable, brilliant, hilarious, marvelous daughter, was lost in a fire there. Is still having a fire there. And 4 years later, they established a fund at the Contemporary Arts Forum to make a permanent fund to pay tribute to Andrea, who loved nature. And so they do all kinds of wonderful things with the kids and with adults. And I do these yearly benefits. And this year I thought, oh, I can't do this. I'm not well enough. And then I went to the concert and I heard this fantastic duo we have here. And I said, oh, and they were so kind. They immediately said, yes, come. We love to come. And you will be blown away because their music is absolutely heavenly. Would you like to introduce what you're going to play?
Can we move closer?
Yeah, I think so.
Excellent idea. Closer.
Yeah, I would get right up and center.
Yeah, you can sit up there if you want.
Do you want to say your name and where you're from?
I'm Carlos Avila, and I live here in New York.
And you met.
I'm from California.
Where?
In San Francisco.
Oh, best place.
Yeah.
And you came here for?
To go to school at Juilliard.
And now you're finished with
And
Juilliard?
now I'm finished, but I still work there.
As a...
I'm on staff.
On staff. And you're also going on tour, we heard.
Yes.
With?
With a great baritone named Leon Williams. For about a month.
And you're going where, around the world?
No. Around like all the places in America you probably never go to usually. So.
Devoted red.
All the red states, yeah. It's a red state tour. Yeah.
But with your music, you're going to convince them.
Yeah, we're going to turn them all blue.
Okay. Brilliant. Wonderful.
Yeah.
And you, we're going to just get a little of Zlatomir.
Yes. So my name is Zlatomir Fung, and I am originally from near Boston. And I'm a cellist. I study at the Juilliard School here in the on the Upper West Side, and it's my second year there as an undergraduate. And I was really happy to meet Dr. Do Lang 3.5 years ago when I first rehearsed right here in her lovely home. I was doing a rehearsal for the Jupiter Symphony Chamber Players, and it was great. I was just really impressed by the assortment of books and photographs. It was quite striking, and I'm so happy to be back again. So thanks. We're really excited to be able to play this event.
Yes, thank you in advance for being here. Bless you.
Could you tell us what you're playing and introduce us to the music?
Yes, definitely. So I'll just introduce each piece as we go along. We have about 25 or 30 minutes of music. So
were you going to tell us about the piece before you play?
Yes. Each individual one I'll introduce, or Carlos can introduce some of them as well. So the first piece we'll play is a short lyrical piece by Gabriel Fauré called Après un rêve, After a Dream. And it's originally a song for voice, but it's arranged beautifully for cello.
You probably recognize it when you hear it. It's so beautiful. Thank you. Can I just mention this incredible technology the both of you? They don't have to have any page turners because they have this amazing device you use with your foot, and there's one piece of paper, and it just changes as you change, so they can go through 30 pages without having a page turner, without having any page. You know, it's amazing. What? Yet another job being replaced by a machine. That's right. But it is amazing. Okay. Okay. Quiet. Shh. provenance of the cello you're using?
So it's a wonderful instrument made around 1705
Wow.
near Naples
Wow.
by a maker named Matteo Popella, and it's being graciously loaned to me by Mark Pasciuco, who's a amateur cellist and a banker
Yes.
who lives
Yeah,
near
they
Boston.
do that for gifted young professionals. Yes.
So.
Wonderful. Wow. Oh, this is wonderful.
Right, so the next piece we'd like to play is the first movement of Johannes Brahms's cello sonata, or sonata for piano and cello, number 1 in E minor. This is, it's interesting. I had to correct myself because actually these works, like the works that Beethoven wrote for piano and cello, have a very equal partnership between the two instruments, and in this movement in particular, the two of us we're just absolutely enthralled by the way that Brahms has different melodic lines being passed on very subtle ways between the piano and the cello, and when interpreting the music, we have to be aware and knowledgeable about these things to make the music really speak, because there's so many mysteries in the way that Brahms has written it, and mysteries that ought to be revealed and conveyed in what he was thinking. So It's a very emotional, wonderful work, and we're delighted to be able to include it today. So thank you.
Wonderful. know what the mystery was? Did you figure it out?
It's an ongoing mystery. Every time you think you have some answers, new mysteries appear.
Mhm.
Would you agree?
Yeah.
What are some of the questions that come up with that?
Well, you want to speak a little bit about it?
About Brahms?
Yeah, about some of the interesting musical figures that present challenges to the performers.
Well, Vladimir and I think you probably overheard us talking while we were rehearsing.
Yeah, it was fascinating.
Last time, yeah. We have a professor who believes that maybe the sonata is very much an active farewell to a love of his at the time. And
Could you talk a little bit louder,
yeah,
please?
sorry, that this it might be like a very explicit farewell to a lover, or not a lover, but a love of his life at the time, Clara Schumann, who was previously the wife of Robert Schumann, and he thinks that there are like coded messages within the sonata. For example, like back in the 18th century, the French horns didn't have valves on them. They were valveless French horns, so they had to move the pitch by changing the shape of their mouth.
Oh, wow.
And because they could only move the pitch by shaping their mouth differently, the intervals that they could move were not always stepwise, but they were very specific. There were fourths and fifths, and they're called French horn fifths. And when a member of the aristocracy in the 18th century, well, actually, the tradition sort of died in the 19th century, but very much so in the late 18th century, when a member of the aristocracy would leave in their horse and carriage and farewell, a bunch of French horns, valveless French horns, would play a farewell theme for them, and it would always sound like this, because these are the intervals of valveless French horns. And so, even though we don't hear it today in 2018, we don't hear that as a farewell. If you had lived in the early 19th century, when you hear that sound, you automatically associate it with a farewell. So, I mean, we have other sounds we associate to, like, when you hear
Specifically
but
a
like
farewell for a prince?
Or just any sort of farewell. And so at the end of this sonata, me and Vladimir trade French horn fifths. And you believe that it's maybe, I mean, you might be reading too much into it. That definitely people would have heard that as a farewell, but a farewell to what is unknown. We do also know that Brahms's letters to Clara at the time that this sonata was written were becoming progressively more and more romantic in nature. And then after this sonata was written, there was an absence of letters, and Brahms was very famous for burning anything that he thought might leave traces of history behind. And then when the letters resumed between him and Clara, they were platonic in nature. They weren't romantic anymore. So it's just something that we talk about in rehearsal. These are like nerdy things that we talk about. Sometimes they don't even affect the way we play the piece. We just talk.
Oh, they're interesting. How was it difficult for the mouth to make these different movements to make up for the valve?
I don't know. I can't even make a sound on the French horns. I have no idea. But I think
it wasn't like a kiss. Goodbye.
No. But horn players still do alter the pitches with their mouth sometimes, and not the vowels. That's why they only have 3 vowels.
I didn't hear that. What was that last?
Oh, French horn players still alter the pitch of their instrument with their lips quite often.
Oh.
So. Wow. Anyway, that's like a really nerdy.
That's one example, yeah.
That's what we talk about in rehearsal.
Well, thank you. It's marvelous, fascinating to know that, really.
Anyway, the next 2 pieces are much lighter.
Can I ask you one thing? How did they become platonic after being romantic? Do you talk about that too? How do you change the nature of a relationship?
I've actually looked at some of the letters. I don't speak German, so it all sounds. I don't know what the English translation is always a little stranger, but I guess it's like more or less before I was writing the sonata, it was like my heart and my undying love and my. Brahms was quite the romantic, but also a very stubborn and he could be a mean person. And I think when the letters resumed, which would have been around the early 1860s, when they resumed, he was just more like, "What's up, girl? How you doing?"
I'm over you.
Was that after Schumann was hospitalized for dementia?
Yeah, Schumann died in 1856, so by that time he had already been dead for just a few years. But Clara Schumann always knew and that it would have been improper for a widow in the 19th century to begin romantic relations with another man.
Oh,
that would have been severely looked down on by all of society. She was one of the most famous pianists in all of Europe. So she was a high-profile person that couldn't be just tramping around with some young composer.
She was born in 1819.
1819, is that right?
Yeah.
So.
And actually, Brahms was 14 years her junior.
Yeah.
Good.
He was younger.
Yes, he was born in 1833.
Huh.
So it was totally out of the question, but still.
There's no record of them ever hooking up.
Maybe they made sure they didn't leave a record.
Well, exactly.
That's what many historians debate that today.
They were good at burning letters.
Yeah, they were good at burning letters.
There was a Hollywood movie about the friendship between the three. The
Song of Love, right?
What?
Are you referring to Song of Love?
Yeah, I think so. With Paul Henreid, Katharine Hepburn.
Yeah, Katharine Hepburn played Clara Schumann.
Right.
It's an amazing movie. I recommend it to everyone.
Robert Walker, was it?
Yeah, exactly. Amazing movie. It's a little cheesy, but it's great cheese.
What's the title,
Song
Brian?
of Love.
Song of Love.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, my teacher does it. He passed away recently, but he does a narration of that in public. Actually, does a narration of that entire movie while playing the piano.
Oh my God.
The movie ends with this.
Can you say that?
Uh-huh.
I have a question about
Swooning.
partnership. Do you verbalize how you're going to work together, or do you just let it all happen?
Oh, we talk a lot. Probably more than we should.
But have you ever tried to play with somebody and you can't communicate together? Does that happen?
Yeah, we both have experiences working with people that we don't get along with as well. Yeah. So we get along though.
Oh, clearly you do.
How long have you been playing together?
4 years maybe.
4 years.
Do you ever think that a love affair couldn't be any greater than the communication you have with someone you play music with?
Wow, that's a really heavy question.
Yeah, sure.
You can get back to me next
I
week.
don't know. I'm single, so I don't think he has a girlfriend. He can tell me.
Well, you know, my mother, who's not a musician, just as an outsider, she always said that she thought that playing chamber music with someone was the second most intimate thing you could do with them.
Oh, that's
Wow. The first being eating chocolate, of course.
Right, yeah.
Oh my.
There's that.
Beautiful.
It's great.
But you still didn't tell us how Clara Schumann was.
Oh,
So old.
I guess she
Oh.
must have been
by
around
the
40,
40
early
something?
40s.
Yeah, early 40s.
So old.
Early 40s.
Yeah, she lived
But they
until
were very
1896.
much,
She
very much
actually
constrained by convention. Yeah.
she lived until 1896, and then Brahms passed away just a few months later.
Oh my.
Oh, wow. Broken heart?
Imply what you will.
Why go on? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, great. So we have lighter stuff now. So that was a nice, more substantial work. But now we want to play one of my favorite, I guess one of our favorite kind of concert pieces for cello and piano. It's called the Papillon by Gabriel Fauré.
Oh yeah.
Papillon meaning butterfly in French. And this is just, it's simply the reason why it's sort of head and shoulders above other pieces in the same genre is because it simultaneously demonstrates the virtuosic possibilities of the cello, but at the same time is very harmonically innovative. And you can, if you listen closely to the piano, you'll see that Fauré is kind of playing very in very ingenious ways with the harmony and with the textures. and also the way he alternates between this fast kind of fluttering figure in the cello and the more lush, romantic, soaring figures that we share together is quite something, and it makes a great contrast. But the piece is absolutely charming. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.